everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Andrea. It's nice to have you guys here. Today I have a bit of a 2018 reflections, 2019 intentions kind of a video. Just something to kind of wrap up 2018 on this channel and look forward to 2019. This is also kind of going to be, I'm using the year ahead year compass booklet to kind of guide me through this. So I've got it on my laptop. So if you see me looking down, that's what I'm looking at. I haven't printed it off yet. So for those of you who don't know, and this is not sponsored, but it is a cool thing, so I thought I would share it with you guys since I will be using it as kind of the foundation or the basis for this video. The Year Compass or the Year Ahead booklet is by a group out of Hungary, I think, and they've had it translated so you can get it in English. And it's a free download. You can download it in a couple different sizes, I think like A4 and A5, and you can also download it in a couple different formats. So like just a straight download that you can then print off and handwrite, or the one that I downloaded this year. Last year I did the handwritten, just print out, and I don't think I even fully finished it, or I certainly didn't fill it out as much as I could have because I'm not good at hand journaling, and it is kind of like a journal. So this year I opted to go with the one that is digitally fillable. So it's PDF that I can type onto, and so that let me just kind of go crazy and fill in as much as I wanted to. You can do it by yourself or with a group. I think a group would be fun. I did it by myself, and basically they just recommend that you take a few hours. You kind of need at least a few hours of I'm looking at the directions. If you're doing it lone wolf version, like I did, at least 3 hours of uninterrupted time to look back, and then at least 1 hour of uninterrupted time to plan the coming year. You do want to give yourself a break in between. I ended up working on this in like 3-hour long increments to look back, so I didn't do the whole 2018 section in one sitting because I can't be that reflective for that long of a stretch of time. You will need your calendar of the past year, and then if you print it off, having different pens and stuff kind of makes it fun. And then they recommend you put on some relaxing music, pour yourself a hot beverage, let go of all your expectations, and start when ready. Last year they recommend first going through your calendar and pulling out everything you did, every important event, family gathering, friendly get-together, significant project, write it down. So this is kind of going to be our looking back at 2018. I will try to include maybe some video clips in. Yeah, January. January was crazy. I'm also going to pull up the blog post I did because I recently did a blog post looking back, and I think that will be easier for this section. January and February, frantically writing the last chapters of my dissertation. I think at that point I was finishing up my chapter on Michelle Obama, my final case study chapter, and I had my conclusion and my introduction to write, and oh my gosh. When I posted my 2018 kind of vlog recap video, my 1 second everyday mashup, I think it was Alice from Alice Red who commented how you could really tell where I was still working on my dissertation because there were a lot of shots of my computer, and it's true. I feel like January and February were just a blur. At some point in February I turned 37, well not some point, on the 24th of February I turned 37, and so there was my birthday in there, but everything else is just a blur of frantically getting those last few chapters written, just trying to get as much written and as much done before I would start teaching for the semester in March, because I had a late start condensed class that I was teaching in the spring. So it just felt like every day was sitting here at my desk. The very beginning of January, between Christmas and the start of the semester, was when I redid my office, if you watched my office tour video. So pretty much by the time I was back to writing in January, it was at this new setup by my window. I would have the window open, and it was You know, looking back, it really was quite lovely. It was a very intense period, and I know I was stressed. I mean, I had to have been stressed, but I don't remember. I had to have been panicking on a regular basis. I don't know how I can sit here and say I wasn't, but I've like blocked that out of my head. By March, if I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure by March I had all of my chapters written and I was revising them. And it was sometime around mid-March that I was given permission to schedule my defense. So my chair just seemed to feel that I was definitely going to get all of the revisions done in time. And so we got the date scheduled. And it would have been sometime in March because my defense was the very beginning of April. Again, all of this is just a blur. So on April 4th, the magical day that still just makes me smile so much when I think about it. On April 4th, 2018, I became Dr. Severson, which it's still, you know, several months later, it is still weird to think of myself as Dr. Severson. I still kind of have to, it's almost like a mental double take whenever one of my students would call me Dr. Severson. I had some really lovely students who just insisted on calling me Dr. Severson. And so, you know, I'd be in the middle of packing up my bag at the end of, you know, teaching the class, and they'd be, you know, walking out the door, and there was one girl in particular who every time she left the classroom on Tuesday, she'd kind of look over her shoulder and say, "Thank you, Dr. Severson." And it just, by the end of the semester, like I came to get used to it from her, but it's still, whenever I hear someone call me Dr. Severson, I just, yeah. And I've been told it never gets old. So I'm hoping it always feels as exciting as it still does. So on April 4th, I defended my dissertation, which I filmed, so there is a video for that. At last count, it has over 600 views. I never expected that many people to watch, and even if they're only watching a few minutes of it, I still never expected that many people to even just click on the video. I filmed it primarily for my friend Marie from And the Color Green because she asked me to film it, and I knew there would be a few other people who would have loved to have been there in person but couldn't. And so I thought, okay, since Marie's asking me to film it, I'm sure there's at least a handful of other people who would probably watch it. I may as well film it, and now it's one of my most popular, most viewed videos. That's cool. Because April was also the 2-year anniversary of having this YouTube channel, which is pretty cool. So April was a big month. On April 4th, I defended. I remember being so nervous that day, but not because I thought I was going to fail. I knew I was going to pass. I knew everything was going to work out, but I was just nervous about the questions I would be asked, and I didn't want to stumble on any of the questions. I wanted to, you know, answer all of the questions really well and really demonstrate that I know my subject and I know what I'm talking about. And then the Q&A went great. The rest of the day I know I went out to lunch, and then I came home and watched Netflix, and just for the next few days, honestly, just kind of zoned out. And then the rest of April was spent making the minimal revisions and getting my dissertation officially submitted and finishing up with teaching. So the rest of April was a really kind of frantic month. Thankfully, I didn't have a ton of revisions, so it was really just primarily teaching. And then May, the beginning of May was definitely the craziest. And really just 1 week. I feel like it was really just 1 week of May. It was that second week, because on May 7th, I graduated. That was graduation day, which there was also a vlog of graduation day. And oh my gosh, it was just such a crazy day, but so good. The ceremony was amazing, and then dinner that night at the Capitol Grill was really cool. And I still remember the manager coming over, because like we had marked down that it was for a celebration, and there'd been a card at the table and some confetti, and the restaurant was really great. I highly recommend the Capitol Grill at the Scottsdale Promenade if you're doing any kind of big important celebration, because it's not cheap. It was not a cheap dinner, but they just made the experience so cool. And I remember the manager coming over, you know, "So what are you celebrating tonight?" And I'm sure she was expecting like, "Oh, it's my birthday." And I'm like, "Oh, it's my PhD graduation." And she just was like, "Oh, wow." You don't hear that every day. So I feel like so much of your PhD is spent feeling like you're kind of nothing. Like you're just another PhD student, and it's very easy to feel like you're not special at all, that you're just average because everyone else is doing their PhD, everyone else is doing their research, everyone else is working their backsides off, so what's so special about you? So to have graduation day and to have those moments where, you know, my students, you know, gave me the round of applause and started calling me Dr. Severson, and, you know, when people out at the restaurants that we were celebrating that day, or the day of my defense, you know, oh, what are we celebrating? It's like, you know, and seeing their reactions. Or I wore my class of 2018 t-shirt a few times, and people would just, oh, so what'd you graduate with? Again, expecting, you know, an undergraduate degree or something. Oh, PhD in English. Wow. So I think it's easy for us as academics to downplay our achievements. But oh my goodness, when someone gets excited for you, when someone treats you like you're special, roll with it, accept it, bask in it, because it does not happen that often. So that's one of my pieces of advice for those of you who are coming up on graduation. It really is a very, very, very special day, and a special accomplishment. And so go out and celebrate passing all of your milestones, your comp exam, your colloquy, or your prospectus defense, whatever you call it, your defense, your graduation. Celebrate all of those milestones, because they're not going to happen again. Most of us will only ever do one PhD. And then the day after graduation, which was just so crazy, I got the call to schedule my interview for the instructor position in my department that I had applied for. That was on Tuesday. They asked if I could come down either the next day, on Wednesday, or Thursday. And I'm like, Thursday sounds great. I am not in the headspace for an interview. I need at least, 36 hours. I can't do less than a 24-hour turnaround for that. So Thursday I went and applied for the job, and the interview went great. I remember walking out thinking, don't know if I got it, but there's nothing I would change about the interview. And then an hour and a half later, they called and offered me the job. So clearly I did something right. And that was just insane. And then I got the offer letter on Friday, and I submitted that, I think, the same day. So, but then obviously it was the weekend, so I got confirmation of everything on Monday. And it was like, I have the whole summer now. Like, I thought I was going to spend the whole summer applying for jobs, and now I have a job. So the summer went by in a blur. I was developing my freelance work, which I will talk about more in another video. I think that's going to become a new series on this channel. But again, that's a whole other topic that we'll talk about. There'll be like a channel update or something soon. May and June was a blur. Didn't really do a whole lot other than developing my business idea. And then in July, Tamsin arrived, and it was the best 2 weeks ever, and it was the perfect kind of way to celebrate the end of my PhD. I couldn't afford to travel to the UK, so I brought my own little favorite part of the UK to me. Tamsin came to visit, and we did Sedona and Montezuma Castle and Sierra Vista and Bisbee and Tombstone, as well as tons of shopping around Scottsdale and Phoenix. And she got a tattoo. I will never get a tattoo. It's not gonna happen. But I watched her get one. We discovered prickly pear lemonade in Sedona, and we had the best 4th of July ever. And yeah, it was just, I was absolutely gutted when she had to go home. And I know she was too, because it was just 2 absolutely perfect weeks in the middle of just this very surreal summer of being in between lives, if you will, in between my PhD life and my post-PhD life. So it was just perfect. And then August was time for final class prep, and then starting the fall semester. August, September, October, and November are honestly just a blur. It was just a haze of teaching, and I know I did Vlogtober in October, and that was cool, but it was just, yeah, every week work at home on Monday, teach on campus Tuesday, work at home on Wednesday, teach on campus Thursday, work at home on Friday, and then sleep on the weekends. And somehow I managed to get through the semester. I felt like almost every day I was messaging one of my instructor friends who I knew prior to this, or in the office talking to my office mates who one of them I had known prior to being hired as an instructor. Just asking them, like, am I doing this right? I feel like I'm failing. I feel like I'm sucking as a teacher. I feel like I'm screwing up my students. I feel like I'm gonna get fired. And they were amazing at like just keeping me calm. And then finally, by December, the semester was over. I did Vlogmas, which was always fun. This is my third time doing Vlogmas. I always enjoy it. And I had a great Christmas, which I'm not going to go on about because if you watched Vlogmas, you saw my Christmas. So that kind of brings us up to January. And going back to my year compass, I feel like last year was like the primary, like at some point in here it asks you, what are your 3 words for the previous year? The past year in 3 words: PH done, which I didn't make up that word, but it's not a real word. But I feel like PH done is like a big word for last year. Transition it was a year of transitions from being a PhD student into being a full-time instructor, from living off of student loans to living on a bi-monthly salary. So a lot of transitions. And resilience was the 3rd word that I chose because it just, it was just crazy. And especially by the fall, my mental health was definitely struggling. The summer was not long enough to recover from my PhD. And so I wasn't really going into the fall semester fully recharged and recovered from the previous several years of grad school. I definitely learned some lessons in how strong I am. I hate having to be that strong all the time, but I am strong. I'm just going to read the last bit of the 2018 section of the year compass is farewell to your last year. If there's anything else left you would like to write down, or if there's anybody you would like to say goodbye to, do it now. So most of the year compass is pretty personal, so I wasn't going to share all of it, but skimming this, I think I can share this bit. So 2018 has been a roller coaster and I am ready for a new ride. I have so many thoughts and emotions about this past year, and I've built up so many fears and anxieties that I don't want to take into 2019 with me, or at least I don't want to be gripping them so tightly. I want to learn how to live more in the moment and not be so anxious about the future or held back by the past. I'll be 38 in 2 months. I want this to be the year that I really start breaking old habits and patterns and create the life I've always wanted and have been working so hard for. For years I've always said, after my PhD, ... Well, it's after my PhD now. Time to do what I want and stop holding myself back or making excuses. So that kind of gets into what 2019 has in store. I'm not one for resolutions. I don't like resolutions. I don't feel like resolutions are helpful. I feel like, for me at least, I feel like resolutions can be very black and white. Either you do them or you don't do them. And one of the things that I'm trying to work on, particularly for my mental health, is breaking my tendency to see things in very black and white terms, or very all or nothing terms. That is what has gotten me into a lot of trouble in the past. I want 2019 to be a year not of all or nothing, black or white, but a year of a technicolor rainbow. I want to be open to anything and everything, and I want to be pursuing all of my various goals, and as long as I'm making progress in those goals, that is what I am focusing on. So I have 3 kind of general intentions is what I'm calling them. Not resolutions, but intentions. And I will measure my success in these by how much progress I make, not in how perfectly or completely I achieve the goals within these intentions. Also, each intention would break down into multiple goals and things that I'm working on. So the first one is to get my health kind of back in a more steady and stable place. I want to find a new therapist. Probably also find a psychiatrist. I feel like I just need some extra help at the moment. And also I found a new doctor back in December, so I want to continue working with her and with my physical therapist to get my fibromyalgia and my IBS more under control. My IBS will be a future video. I am going to talk about that soon. It has gotten significantly worse over the last few months of starting my new job, and it has been really impacting kind of the quality of my life. There are some videos on YouTube about IBS, but I feel like it's such an embarrassing subject to talk about that I feel like any of us who struggle with it and are able to talk about it should talk about it. So that will be an upcoming video. So I want to get my fibro and my IBS more under control and my mental health in a better place. So that's intention number 1. Intention number 2, this is going to be a hard one. Stop overanalyzing my teaching. I'm a good teacher. I'm not screwing up. My evals for my students in the fall definitely proved that. I think I had 1 out of 117 students not like me and not like my teaching or my class. Everyone else either had nothing to say, positive or negative, so I assume that was a good thing. And then of those who did fill out their evals, the vast majority were overwhelmingly positive and encouraging. So it's time for me to trust my training and my experience and to really get imposter syndrome to shut the F up. I have been listening to it for far too long. It has been my constant companion throughout grad school. It was wrong. It was always wrong. I got my PhD. I finished. I did it. So why am I still listening to a voice telling me I suck and I can't do this and everyone else is better than me? Like, enough. So it's time to stop overanalyzing my teaching, stop overanalyzing me as a researcher, and just, I did it. I climbed that mountain. I proved to myself and everyone else that I could do it. I've got the paper to prove it. Done. Imposter syndrome can go take a long walk off a short bridge. And it's not as easy as that. I know it's going to take some work, but this year is the year that I want to really just break down imposter syndrome and say goodbye to it completely. And then number 3, my third intention is I need to stop treading water and drowning. I feel like last year was this constant cycle of treading water and then a wave coming and sucking me under, and then swimming back to the surface, treading water, and then being knocked under. And this constant feeling of going back and forth between surviving by treading water or just almost drowning, and feeling like I can't breathe and feeling super overwhelmed. And I want to break that cycle. So I've got it written down. Part of the blog post was I need to stop treading water / drowning and start swimming. And I want to kind of just really feel like I'm getting my feet underneath me and I'm making progress and I'm doing things for myself. I feel like this is also going to be a topic of another video, but for years I told myself that things would be better or easier once I finished my PhD. That like, this idea that life would start after my PhD and everything that I've dreamed of will finally start happening once I finish my PhD. And if you are still in your PhD, start recognizing that now. Life doesn't start when you finish. Life is happening right now. And things don't get better, easier, simpler once you graduate. Things just get different. Different challenges, different obstacles, different things to stress you out, but it's still, that's just life. We're adults now. Life is inherently stressful and anxiety inducing. Some of us handle those things better than others, but no one's life is perfect. And everyone's life has struggle, some struggle or another. So finishing your PhD isn't going to be an end to all of your struggle and suffering. But the more that you are holding out for this mythical idea that it will, the more of an identity crisis you're going to have. Again, the post-PhD identity crisis is something that I have definitely been dealing with, and that will be the topic of a future video in the next probably 4 to 6 weeks. But it's not the case that your life just gets better when you graduate. Some people are lucky. They get a really great job post-graduation, and it does feel like it's better. But for a lot of us, especially with the current job market, we're not getting the perfect job straight out of graduation. I am incredibly grateful for the job that I have, and I absolutely love my job. I love the people I work with. I love the students I teach, but it is not a long-term situation. I don't want to live in Arizona for the rest of my life. I've been very open about that on this channel. I used my various stages of my PhD. Oh, I'm writing my dissertation. Oh, I'm doing this. Oh, I'm doing that. I use this as an excuse to not take steps to live the life that I wanted to live post-PhD. So this is the year I'm going to stop making excuses, and I'm going to start doing the things that I have been wanting to do. And those I'll expand on in future blogs and future videos. But they all kind of have to do with whatever the answer to the question of, if I'm not a PhD student, who and or what am I? I feel like once I can answer that question for myself, then that answer will kind of help clarify what these things I'm working on are. So part of it is moving to the UK, but again, like, what kind of job am I going to apply to in the UK? Do I want to stay in academia? Do I want to do something different? If I do something different, what would I do? Because this is what I've been trained for. This is what I've spent years working towards. But is my heart still in academia? I don't know, because it's changed. That's a whole other subject that we can talk about later. But I feel like I need to figure out who I am. I need to work through this identity crisis that I've been having, and that will help me clarify the rest of the year. So I feel like January, I can't speak too much for all of 2019, but January is going to be spent doing a lot of thinking, a lot of personal development work, a lot of goal setting and planning. My teaching contract is through May. I will apply to renew that contract next month. I'll submit my file and hopefully get renewed. I do see myself teaching here again next year. It's just a feeling I have. I do think I've got at least one more year here as an instructor, and I would welcome that. I would enjoy that. But yeah, it's crazy. It's a crazy time. One of the last things on the year compass that I am able or willing to share is they want you to pick a word to symbolize and define the year ahead. You can look at this word if you need some extra energy so you remember not to give up your dreams. And I'm horrible at picking one word. So I've got several, but I feel like there are two that are rising to the top. So the first one is becoming, because I feel like I am, and not just because it's the title of Michelle Obama's book, but it's a good word, and I feel like it does summarize like where I'm headed. I'm becoming who I want to be and who I feel I'm meant to be. And then the second word is limitless. And I kind of like the two together in that the idea of I am becoming limitless, or I am limitless in who I can become. But yeah, those are kind of my two words for going into this year. And adjust. I feel like adjust is an important word. I need to learn how to adjust better when different things come up and happen. I tend to, whenever something makes me feel fearful or anxious or tired or overwhelmed, I get paralyzed. I'm not good at just adjusting and kind of going with the flow. So I think adjust would probably be my third word for the year. They let us pick 3 words to define the previous year, but we only had space to pick one word for the year ahead. So that is kind of looking back at last year and looking ahead at this year. There will be some upcoming videos, like I said, talking about some of the things I mentioned in this video in more detail. If there's anything else I mentioned in this video that you feel you'd like to hear me expand more on, just let me know in the comments and I'm happy to do that. So if you've made it to the end of this video, in the comments, I would love to hear one highlight from your 2018 and one intention. Again, I feel like it's a more encouraging word than resolution. So one intention for your 2019. So one highlight from 2018 and one intention for 2019. Put those in the comments. I'd love to hear those. And yeah, give the video a thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe if you are not subscribed. Tell me about your highlights and your intentions in the comments, and I will see you all soon in the next video. Thank you very much for watching this one. Bye-bye.